What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here. Today for the weekly update. Mostly charts and graphs market talk today. Really not a ton of news this week. Honestly, it was kind of quiet. There was the little story with the guy getting 30 months in prison. Some other gossip nonsense with Mark Pax, maybe. Really, other than that, it was honestly one of the quietest weeks we've had so far this month. You know, no grading company did anything too super crazy, change prices around, this, that, or the other thing. NBA kicked off this week. I guess that's kind of the biggest news thing. And we'll lead off with that in a minute. But so far, it's really had minimal effect on the market overall. Now, to be fair, we're like 3 days into the season. A little bit longer than that. Season's technically started Tuesday night, but I think people are still trying to get a feel for things, and we haven't seen any crazy price swings yet. Once again, more on that in a minute. A couple things off the rip on top of the show here. Chantilly was this weekend. I haven't heard anything too spectacular, good, bad, or indifferent. I asked Bobbles how it was. He said it was a little bit busier on Saturday than Friday. So curious for thoughts down below. If anyone was at Chantilly, if I could get a vibe check, you know, how was the foot traffic? How was pricing, pickups, that sort of stuff? Leave it in the comments down below. That's one of the bigger shows that I've never been to that I always say I want to get there. And then it just kind of never works out for me to be able to get there whenever the show's going on. The Ship Shawana show is coming up in a couple weeks. I am still up in the air on whether I can attend. It is a Friday, Saturday this time, the first weekend in November. I'm trying to look at some scheduling stuff to see if I could potentially get out there. As of right now, it's a coin flip. I would like to try to go. I really enjoy that show, but I'm still up in the air on the Ships show. Another thing I want to throw out at the top of the show before I forget, and before we do formally dive into charts and graphs, I may... You know, we did the interview with Peter last week. You know, if you didn't watch that, go check it out. I did a little clip video yesterday of him talking about the card cleaning stuff because I thought that was a good topic to pull out. I may be doing something similar with someone from Beckett. Still trying to figure out the day and time, format, etc. But if you have questions for Beckett, leave them in the comments down below. Just put Beckett and then like a dash or a slash or whatever, and whatever your question is. Kind of like I did with the SGC thing, I'll try to gather up and try to mold the questions together to kind of slim them down a little bit. You know, a lot of the people ask similar questions or questions in the same vein of in regards to SGC, you know, like slab redesign, innovation, security, that sort of stuff. And I kind of boiled those all down to a handful of questions. I'll probably do the same thing, but I just kind of want to get a vibe with where, you know, if I had someone on from Beckett, and like I said, it's not 1000% locked in yet, but it's looking pretty good. What would you want to hear? What would you want me to ask someone from Beckett? So leave that in the comments down below. Beckett / whatever, and then your question. That'll let me know that this is a question for Beckett and not a question for me specifically as a comment on this video. So go ahead and drop that down in the comment section down below. Believe that's everything I wanted to tick off at the top of the show. So with all that being said, let's just go ahead and dive straight into Market Movers. Link in the description down below if you want to check it out. First month, $1, and then there are a bunch of different pricing tiers for their monthly charges depending on what level of access you wish to have. So you can click on the link in the description for this video and check those all out and see which one works best from you. A lot of people ask me, you know, is Market Movers worth it? I personally find it worth it. You might not. The best thing I could tell you to do is try it for a month. If you don't like it, cancel it. If you like it, cool. If you don't, cancel it. You're going to know better than I do getting your hands on it. So let's lead things off here with the NBA. Basketball has started this week. My Cavs, unfortunately, had a little bit of a disappointing loss with Darius Garland getting hurt. Eye laceration, not too serious. Sounds like he's going to miss the weekend. I'm actually recording this just prior to the Saturday night's game and the NBA slate on Saturday night. So if something super crazy happened on Saturday, I don't know about it yet. That's why we're not talking about it. And then probably going to miss Sunday's game as well. But so far, it has been a fairly normal start to the season. We don't have any sort of crazy injury. Zion looks really good. We'll see if that has an impact on his prices going forward. I didn't pull up any individual card prices for this week. Quite frankly, the season's still too new, and you know, if we're going to see shifts, ups, downs, or just things staying flat, the sample size is too small of just a couple days. I did pull up the market indexes, which we'll talk about those in a minute. But you know, Zion looks good. The question with Zion is always going to be health. When he is healthy and in shape, and when he is on the floor, he looks really, really good. The Pelicans look really, really good as a team. Donovan Mitchell looked really good as someone in a new place. When Darius Garland went down, he had a very, very good second half. Really kind of shredded the Raptors' defense. The Lakers look terrible. It's going to be very interesting to see how that impacts LeBron prices over the course of the season. His stuff had already been trending down for quite a while, and now the Lakers look like a play-in team if they are lucky. And, you know, everyone knows that LeBron's chasing the scoring title. I don't think that bumps. I don't think the scoring title will outweigh the downward trend in his prices potentially if the Lakers just suck. And spoilers, I think the Lakers just suck. Sixers still trying to figure their way out. Giannis and stuff. Like, a lot of these teams have only played one game in a lot of cases at the time I am recording this. So things are kind of still figuring their way out. Ja looked absolutely amazing on Friday night. Almost had a 50 burger, dropped 49 in his game and looked insane doing it. Him and Zion, if Zion could stay healthy and Ja could stay healthy, those two are so freaking good. I'm always been on Team Ja over Team Zion, just from a long-term health standpoint. And from an entertainment perspective, Ja is one of the funnest players to watch in the NBA right now, and it's not even really close, to be quite honest. And once again, we'll get into more individual card prices maybe next week on this. I'd like to kind of do an 1 week NBA overreaction meter video style thing with some general thoughts. Maybe we'll do that in the middle of the next week. But that's kind of where the NBA market's at. You can see the market indexes down below. Really not much shift. This is just going back 7 days. I essentially just kind of marked all the market indexes in the Market Pulse section of Market Movers. They all have kind of slightly different groupings of cards on it, but you can see no major swings. One of them is up 1.4%, one's down 2.4%, one's down 2.1%, one is up 1.1%. So no real massive movements one way or the other. I will say the biggest percentage movements, and we kind of hinted about this, or kind of talked about this before the season started, that I saw were on the very, very low end, like raw silvers of rookies that are kind of coming out of nowhere and that no one was really talking about, and now all of a sudden are having big starts to the season. Not star players, and I'm literally talking like $5 cards going to $15 and $20 cards on silver raws. That stuff is definitely still happening. You're seeing big percentage increases on some of those guys coming out of the woodwork. Star player wise, you know, you're talking a Silver Prism PSA 10 or even a base Prism PSA 10, Optic Hollows, whatever. You're not seeing huge swings on that stuff yet, if at all. So the lower end, you could definitely make some percentage gains on if you can move in quantity. And that's something we've been hinting about. You know, the safest and best way right now is that lower end stuff, and you're going to make a big percentage, but you're not going to make a big dollar figure. So that means you need to increase your number of transactions to actually make, you know, a decent amount of money back. You know, if you sell one card that went from 5 to 15, that's great. If you do that 10 times over, you know, now you're actually starting to build something up. All depends on what your bankroll is to get off the ground. But that's one of the things that we've been talking about is that it's much easier for a card to go from $5 to $25 than it is for a card to go from $500 to $600, or, you know, whatever the case that you want to use. That lower end, you can really make a decent chunk on if you're willing to put in the work and put in the volume for it. And you're seeing that in the early days of the NBA. Once again, we'll dive into that a little bit more once we have a little bit bigger sample size. Moving along to let's go football before baseball. We'll do baseball last. Football. Last week, we kind of looked at a lot of the players that had been struggling so far to start the season. Joe Burrow, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, whether it was either struggles and or injury. This week, I wanted to flip the script and kind of look at the guys that are performing extremely well. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, do a check-in on Patrick Mahomes, like the S-tier level guys, and kind of see what that end of the spectrum looks like. So first up, we have Josh Allen. I'm going back 60 days on everything. That takes us back to late August 23rd, 22nd. So right before, about a week before the season started up until this point. And it's interesting to see how the guys that are even playing extremely well, how much they have or haven't gone up. And really in a downswinging market like this, where everything's still trying to kind of find its floor, even if you're holding even, that's almost kind of a win right now. That's definitely what we've been seeing across some of the other categories. So up first, Josh Allen. I have his Optic Hollow PSA 10 pop 200-ish, his base Prism pop 1700. And then I also pulled, just to kind of get a different vibe, his Contenders Optic rookie ticket, just raw. This one had the most transactions and had recent transactions and transactions from a little bit ago, just to kind of see how that market's been swinging. The Optic Hollow is up about 13%. His base Prism is actually down 2%. And then the Optic Contenders Rookie Ticket Auto is up 24%. That's a $700 swing on that card. So on the high end, a Contenders Rookie Ticket Auto, that is up the most, followed by the Optic Hollow with a 13% increase. And then the base Prism is just basically flat. Now, base, I know people are probably saying, well, base, what are you using base for? 2018 Prism, base still matters, which shows that a base card is still going for $700. Keep in mind, 2018 silvers are extremely short printed in Prism. A PSA 10 probably has a pop in the teens, maybe low 20s. Last I looked, and it hasn't been a while since I looked, but they rarely come up. Rarely come up. One of the probably most short printed silvers that there really is 2018. So 2018 base actually still matters and also has a pretty low population count. This is pre-boom. The PSA 10 pop report on a Josh Allen is only 1,700. Now that's a decent chunk for sure, but it's not a Luka based Prism that has a pop of 23,000 or whatever it's up to these days. So kind of keep that in mind. And then we see the rookie ticket with a big increase there. So interesting things on Josh Allen. You know, his primary most transacted card, 80 transactions, really hasn't moved at all. The Optic Hollow, which is almost like a Prism Silver in this case, going for almost $2,000, has upshifted ever so slightly. And then the rookie auto has the biggest increase. Next up, Jalen Hurts, by far and away the biggest overall winner of this season. Now, I did not pull Tua's numbers. If Tua wouldn't have had the concussion and kept playing well, he'd be in consideration here. But he obviously had the concussion, played poorly, had the concussion, came back, got hurt again. So I didn't even end up pulling his prices. For the first month of the season, it was Tua and Hurts. Tua's fallen off as he got hurt, no pun intended. And Hurts has been kind of the lone guy that's really had the biggest price increases. So it's kind of on Hurts. Pulled a few extra cards here. We have his Prism Silver PSA 10, his Optic Hollow PSA 10, his Prism Base. I also pulled his Prism Green for the color match in a PSA 10. And then same thing, I also pulled a Rookie Contenders Auto. And same thing as the previous one, we are going back 60 days on this one. Silver Prism up 38% from late summer. Pop on that is 181. Optic Hollow, flat. Interesting one. We'll circle back to that in a second. Base Prism up 40%. Pop 1,700 on that. So same PSA pop as the Josh Allen. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, when this product was released is when PSA was at peak backlog. So a lot of those probably got sent other places. Because at the time, it was very expensive to grade with PSA, and this card was not selling for what it is today. Back, even just 60 days ago, it was going for only $100. Back when this product released, it was probably $100 just to grade a card with PSA. So the PSA pop report on this, I don't know. I don't want to say I don't buy it, but I feel like if you look at this in a year from now, if he keeps playing the way that he is, that number is going to explode. In the last 60 days, because this is in Market Movers, it has gone up by 191 PSA 10s. That's a 12% increase in 60 days. If he continues to play the way that he is, and the Eagles keep looking as good as they do, now that we have cheaper grading back, I'd be very curious to see what this population growth looks like in another 30 or 60 days. This was a 12% increase in 60 days. What does the next 60 days look like? Because I do think there's a decent chunk of these out there that are not in PSA slabs that could end up there. So just keep that in mind. Green PSA 10, pop 172 on that one. The largest increase by far. Color match, always about the color match. 67% increase. That card went from $300 to $500. And then the rookie ticket auto, I was a little surprised by this one. Basically stayed flat in this case. Now, one is not sold for a few days. The rookie ticket is right there. The yellow line at $475. That was last on 10/17, so about 5 days ago. The first sale was not back a full 60 days ago. It was on 9/5 for $500. So that card has basically stayed flat. Now, we don't know what the condition was, anything like that. That's where things get a little bit tricky. Why I typically don't like to look at raw cards, but once again, this had the transactions around the dates that I needed to kind of show some movement on it, or in non-movement on it. And then the Optic Holo didn't move a lot either. That was the one that surprised me a little bit, that the silver is up 40%, that the base is up 40%, the green is up 70%, but the Optic Holo really has not moved that much. And in this case, the last Optic Holo sale, now once again, has been a few days, 10/15, but even on 10/15, he was still having a hell of a season. That was only a week ago. So interesting to see what the next one sells for, but you would think it would get a little bit of a bump up, just given that everything else has crept up quite a bit on Hertz. So maybe a buying opportunity. Maybe that's one of those cases where, you could try to use the last comp to your advantage if someone has something priced at whatever the last comp is. Now, obviously, we're in season. Anything can happen to drastically swing that price, good, bad, or indifferent. So keep that in mind. But maybe a sneaky buying opportunity there if you could track one down at current pricing. And then always remember, if there is a true color match on a card, don't sleep on it. People, I am all aboard team color match. It is definitely a thing. They definitely get a premium. So always keep your eyes peeled for color match stuff. So that's Hertz. That's where we're at. Josh Allen balling out has basically stayed flat. He had a lot of expectations built into his prices already. Hertz, hyped in the preseason, but hadn't really had anything super built in yet. Now he gets the price bumps. Now, there was plenty of guys people gambled on. Hertz, Lance, Mac Jones, hell, even Joe Burrow. The list goes on of all these guys that were super hypey, like around the national time. For the most part, Tua was another one. For the most part, you've lost your ass on all those guys. Hertz is the only one that's done good. So if you solely focused in on him and bought nobody else, you were having a fantastic football season. If you spread your money around and got into 3 or 4 of those guys, you're probably hoping Hertz's profits are enough to cover up the losses that you're taking on Trey Lance and Mac Jones or whoever else you put money into. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're speculating on stuff like this, that even if you went for a lot of different players, you could still be underwater in the aggregate. Just depends on what your approach is to all that. And as always, if you bought a bunch of Hertz stuff at the National and you're up 30, 40, 50, 60% in some cases, if you bought multiples, they're on buy this week, I believe. Not a bad time to start taking some profits. Do they look great? Yes. Has Hertz been playing awesome? Yes. Could they go to and win the Super Bowl? Absolutely. Guess what? A lot of other stuff can happen between now and then. So if you bought 3, 4, 5 different Hertz cards, maybe slowly start letting them go. You know, if you bought 5 cards and they're all up 40%, depending on what your price points are, obviously, let's assume they're all around the same general price ranges. If you sell off just 2 of those, it would probably cover a good chunk of your cost basis on the other 3. And then that's when you could start getting cute. Take your profits out, pull some money out of it, go use that to go make the next play. And, you know, if you bought multiples, then you could get cute and let those ride a little bit, if you will. So just kind of keep that in mind. If there is a player that you truly do believe in, buy multiples. Buy multiples. Last but not least, let's just check in on Mahomes really quickly. Same thing going back 60 days. I pulled his 2017 Prism Silver PSA 10 and his 2017 Optic Hollow PSA 10. Basically, no movement to slight downtrend. The Optic Hollow is actually held flat at basically 2K. The Silver Prism is actually down $1,000 from 4,000 to 3,000, a 20% decrease. And you can see a lot of that has been in the last couple of days, has been a serious dip down. Always, always, always be careful on this card. If you're checking comps, go a level deeper and make sure that there's nothing, no shenanigans going on whatever the last couple comps are on this card. This is one of the most messed with cards. I don't want to say it's a common card. It's pop 900, but one of the more readily available cards that nonsense goes on with on a regular basis. Now, in this case, you know, it looks like a decent chunk of the last 30 or so sales have been relatively on point. I double checked Terapeak and eBay sold listings. There was definitely some that weren't paid for, but generally speaking, this graph lines up with where, in my mind, it should be with what I saw on eBay backend data. And Market Movers does filter out zero feedback winners and all that stuff, but you could definitely see a little bit of a tail off here on his Silver Prism the last few days. He's been playing fine. You know, the Chiefs have been kind of a little all over the place. Definitely don't look as good as last year's team with Tyreek on. Offensive line looks a little sus so far, even though that was an area that they were supposed to improve. But they are definitely not as scary as they once were, that is for sure. We will see with prices trend as things continue throughout this season. That is all I have for you guys and girls today. Tomorrow, non-sports card market update. Not sure what's all going to be in that video yet. Got to research that on Sunday. Tuesday, I know I just posted the video on it. The CGC submission, that video was actually recorded prior to me going to New York City Comic-Con. It just kept getting delayed and going up. That submission has actually returned. I don't know if that'll be Tuesday's video or not, but it'll definitely be out sometime next week, unless it becomes a very quickly news-heavy week. That submission came back to me today. FedEx man came and visited me on Saturday. I got a stack of fresh slabs that I'm staring at sitting on my desk. I'll probably record that tomorrow. Maybe it goes up on Tuesday. Maybe it doesn't. I would like to do an NBA overreaction video at some point in time next week. And I'd also like to do a video on PSA. They did something recently that is not card related, that they are now grading. Now, I briefly touched on it on the New York City Comic-Con wrap-up. But I think from an overall business perspective of PSA/collectors, it was an extremely smart move, and I just haven't had time to talk about it. So we might circle back and chit-chat on that a little bit. And then obviously, you know, any new stuff that comes up, we'll pivot on a dime and cover that as well. So I just realized we accidentally skipped baseball this week. Boy, if that doesn't sum up the state of baseball in one phrase, is that I moved it to the end and then forgot to talk about it. Long story short, Bryce Harper stuff's buzzy. Beyond that, everything else is still kind of correcting one way or the other. Oh, Yordan Alvarez, also pretty buzzy in regards to pricing creeping up, as those two guys have been kind of dominating the playoffs so far. We'll see where things go as those two series progress, but nothing quite sums up the current state of baseball like forgetting about talking about it in a video when you have all the stuff pulled for it. So, but we're running a little long, so we'll just go ahead and leave it at that. Like, comment, subscribe. questions for Beckett, leave them in the comments below. Beckett / whatever, parentheses, ellipses, whatever your question is, so that I know that it's for them. Catch you guys and girls on the next one. Peace.